Good morning, everyone. So, recently on a live stream, I was asked a very poignant question about Lori Vallow and how her case may pertain and how the sentencing may come down in regards to another famous case of a mother who killed her children. Could the cases work out the same as this other one? Could Lori Vallow be found not guilty because of reason of insanity? So today we're going to take a look at this case that they were asking about, Andrea Yates, out of 2001, June 20th, 2001, out of the state of Texas. See where she is today and how it may pertain to actually Lori Vallow's case in the state of Idaho. Thank you for joining me today. So first, we need to look at Andrea Yates. Who is she? What did she do? And what was the actual sentencing there in the state of Texas for Andrea Yates? So first, we need to go back to 2001, June 20th, 2001 to be exact. Andrea Yates, suffering from postpartum depression, off of her medication that she was taking for the postpartum depression and for her schizophrenic tendencies. Not that does not mean that she was schizophrenic. It means that she has tendencies that closely mask the symptoms and the symptomology of schizophrenia. Andrea Yates had stopped taking her medication on the advice of her family physician, the pediatrician, and family practitioners that she was seeing, because she was worried about how the medication may affect the possible sixth child that her and her husband Russell were trying to have. Off of her medication, she snapped, basically, in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it, but we're trying to boil this down so we're not here for the next 2 hours. But Andrea Yates snapped. And one evening, June 20th, 2001, Andrea Yates drowned all five of her children in the bathtub of her home, one at a time. As tragic as that is, there were so many clues that could have stopped the case from never getting to that point. Going off of the medication that she was on already was a tragic series of events, especially, and you could say medical malpractice was involved because her doctor was not, keeping close tabs on how Andrea Yates was doing on a week by week basis. In 2006, Andrea Yates was found not guilty by reason of mental defect and was awarded to the court, the state, for placement in a state mental hospital, where at that point, originally, she was in the state hospital, state of Texas state mental hospital. She was later transferred to Kerrville Hospital, where she remains to this very day. She has been on and off again her medication ever since arriving at Kerrville. And you need to understand, from the pharmaceutical side of it, why Andrea Yates would go off of her actual medication. These medications that she has been on since 2001 have, they've caused some serious side effects. First, the patient feels better and they don't believe that they have the mental health issues that they originally had. So they stop taking their medication. I'm all better now. There's no reason to take the medication. Andrea Yates is currently still a patient at Kerrville State Mental Hospital in the state of Texas. And this is where Andrea Yates will be for the rest of her life. Andrea Yates was found not guilty by reason of mental defect and incapacity back in 2006. Since she was found not guilty by that, it works like this in a nutshell, and I'm boiling it down to the smallest points. So Andrea Yates, in order to ever be tried for the crime, would have to be found that she has been cured of her mental health issues, that she is able to aid in her own defense. At this point, we know 20 plus years later that she will never, ever be able to aid in her own defense. And so much so, the year by year review of her mental health status, Andrea has waived each and every one of them every year. So there's no reason for them to take her back into court every year to evaluate where she is. She knows that she's not better. Her doctors know she's not better, and she never will be better, to the point where they can actually try her for the crime of killing all 5 of her children. So there she will sit in the Kerrville State Mental Hospital for the rest of her life. Day by day, Andrea spends her time doing crafts, puzzles, and simple tasks. She's unable to work. She's unable to aid in any other beneficial work to actually get herself any better. Her mental capacity has slipped, and the medication that she is on actually makes it a lot worse for her. It will slowly eat away the brain to the point where Andrea will be confined to a wheelchair and unable to aid in any aspect of her own life. Someday, the crafts, the puzzles will even be too much for Andrea Yates to take part in. It's a tragic loss of life, but nowhere near as tragic as the day that she took one child at a time, drowned them in the bathtub of her home there in Texas. Andrea Yates was committed to the state mental hospital there indefinitely, where she will reside for the rest of her life. Her husband, Russell Yates, former NASA engineer, would move on with his life, trying to somehow put the pieces back together of his existence, knowing that his wife had murdered all 5 of his children, 4 boys and 1 little girl 6 months of age. Trying to put his life back together has never been easy. Day to day, he has to live with the memory, knowing that his wife killed his entire family. Everything that Russell had worked so hard for and had built up, Andrea took away in a moment's notice. There was no stopping her. She was on a road of destruction from the beginning. The moment that she went off of her medication completely so they could try to have a 6th child was the day that everything was sealed. Everything came to a head shortly thereafter. Russell and Andrea would divorce in 2004, finalized in 2005. Russell moved on out of the area and tried to put his life back together in some form, remarrying years later to Laura Arnold, with whom he would have another child and a son. But that marriage quickly fell apart because Russell was still trying, and still to this day is trying to grasp, and figure out how, why, any of these things have happened. It must be the most horrific thing that any human being could ever live through. knowing that all of your children were taken away just like that at the hands of someone that you loved. Now, how does Andrea Yates' case connect with Lori Vallow? The question the viewer asked was, can Lori Vallow get the same sentence as Andrea Yates? Can Lori Vallow be found mentally incompetent, not guilty, and be sentenced to the state mental hospital in Idaho? The short answer, ladies and gentlemen, is no. No, she cannot. In the state of Idaho, there is no legal defense for being mentally ill or not being able to aid in your own defense because of mental capacity. There are only 4 states where they do not allow a not guilty verdict by mental defect or insanity. Those states are Idaho, Utah, Montana, and Kansas. They're the only states where you're not allowed to be found not guilty by mental defect or insanity. All 4 of those states require that you be restored back to mental capacity before the trial can ever take place. Where are we now with the Lori Vallow case in the state of Idaho? Lori Vallow has now been at the state mental hospital for the past 6 months, getting what they call restorative care. At this point, I hate to break the bad news to the world out there, but after 6 months of intensive psychological and therapeutical, work with her there at the state mental hospital, Lori Vallow has not been restored. And at this point, it does not appear that Lori Vallow will ever be restored to mental health status, so the state of Idaho can prosecute her for the crimes that she committed. The crimes of murder of JJ, Tylee, Tammy, and Charles Vallow. Yes, there are no criminal charges against her for the death of Joseph Ryan, but she should be charged with that because she killed the man from the inside out, slowly taking away everything and anything that meant anything to him at all. But again, at this point, it does not look like Lori Vallow will be restored to mental capacity to a level that the state is set down as in their guidelines to be able to be prosecuted for the crimes that she committed. Hopefully, we will get a status update within the next couple of months that says that Lori Vallow has been transferred from the state hospital back to the actual county jail. At that point, we will know for sure that she has been restored. But everything currently right now with Lori Vallow is under seal. Everything, even if it's not even medical, anyone who may be treating her or not treating her, what medications, everything, from what HIPAA laws would cover and seal, to everything else that has to do with Lori Vallow is going directly under seal. So we cannot get the information anymore on what is happening with Lori Vallow. So, as horrific as those 2 cases are, again, they're different in vast ways. Andrea Yates will never be restored to the point where she can be charged with the crimes of killing her 5 children. Ladies and gentlemen, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other cases across the United States that are just as horrific as these 2, where a mother or a father has taken the life of their young ones. And we have put these people to death. We have sentenced them to indefinite incarceration. and they're just as mentally ill as both of these ladies. A complete injustice to you, to me, to the victim, and to the families involved in these crimes. What you don't see hit the daily news and the weekly YouTube video rounds out there is the cases where the state and nobody else cares about the mental health of the actual perpetrator. And did they know right from wrong when they committed the crime? So that's where we are on the Lori Vallow and where Andrea Yates is. Thank you very much for joining me today. You stay safe out there.